Recorder's on. Go for it.
This is Mark Jordan from unravelgroups.com, and you're listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith. And I'm reminding you to pursue progress, not perfection.
Well done, sir. Thank you very much. I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Tony Schmaltz, thank you very much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
This is going to be fun. So you are at tonyschmaltz.com. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business and your life today.
Ooh, I absolutely love helping people get from where they are to where they want to be. Okay. And that's different for everybody. Some people it's relationships, some people it's financial, physical, emotional, mental. I just love seeing the aha moments on people when you help them get a breakthrough.
I love it. Been there, done that. Usually not in any sort of formal situation, but yes. Like I toyed with the idea of making a website called Personal Development for Drunk People. And then decided against it.
I would have subscribed.
Well, it came from the fact that like I would just spontaneously get into these like deep, meaningful conversations in bars.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. I probably have the T-shirt
with complete strangers.
Yep.
If you want to know more, you ask me about like the. I was flying from where the hell was I? Cincinnati back to Vegas, and people flying to Vegas from anywhere start partying before they get to Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, there's more story there. It was awesome. I almost got arrested.
I've been that guy starting before I got to Vegas many times. Usually it's not even on the plane. It's in the airport before the plane.
Exactly. That was the story. You pretty much nailed it. Anyway. Yeah. So you are Tony Schmaltz. So this is Vroom Vroom Veer. It means we got to back up, go back in time.
Yeah.
So talk about Tony, little Tony. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in a small town called Enumclaw, Washington, out in Washington State.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Farm town at the base of a mountain. So there was a bunch of us that were skiers, snow skiers. We'd drive an hour and a half up the mountain, but it was super farm town, dairy town. So all cows smelled like shit everywhere.
Yeah. Right there with you. I was in Wisconsin, right? The only thing that was different was, there's mountains where you're at.
Right. Exactly. But
I know that smell well.
But yeah, it was fun. It was smaller town, and a lot of people didn't get to enjoy that smaller town. And it was one of those where you took off on your bike in the morning, you didn't come back until it was dark. Your mom said, "Come back before dark, or come back before dinner. Dinner's at 6. Be here by 6."
I love it. I remember those days. It was awesome. Yeah,
it was great. I loved it.
We were lucky as kids, I think.
Oh, big time.
I mean, there was like a very small little window. Well, now my parents got into some shit.
Yeah.
I talked to my dad about the crap that he got into. It makes like everything that I did as a kid sound boring and dumb.
Well, and my kids didn't get away with shit because I did all that stuff. I'm like, you think that you can do anything that I haven't already done? Come on.
That's great.
I mean, I let our second oldest sneak out at night because I knew she wasn't going to get in trouble. As long as she didn't get in trouble or do anything stupid. So like years later, like now she's in her 20s. Yeah. She's like, I was sneaking out, and I'm like, yeah, I know. She's like, you knew? I'm like, yeah, come on. I mean, this is all shit I did when I was growing up. You think I didn't know?
Good for you.
I would get up and the front door's unlocked because you wanted to get back in. Come on.
Wow. That's awesome. Good dadding. Good dadding there. I like it. You're making sure they're safe from a
Yep.
distance. There you go. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were you like in high school? Were you schmaltzy already?
It was senior year when I finally became schmaltzy, and I'll share that story again.
Okay,
so,
sure.
so in high school, though, before I get into that, in high school I was kind of like in between. I was an
Yeah.
athlete, so I was
Okay.
a varsity athlete most of high school, but I was also that guy that like could get along with anybody. I wasn't the quote unquote jock. I mean, I had
You were
friends
an
friends.
ambassador, as they say.
Right. I got along. I was friends with the nerds. I was friends with
Yep.
whatever,
The
the art,
jocks. Yep. The
the theater,
burnouts.
everybody,
Yep.
everybody.
Okay. Theater
Um,
kids. Okay.
yeah. So I was, and mostly baseball, even though I played basketball and football, baseball was my sport. And then I was way into German club.
Okay.
And so junior year, I go on an exchange program to Germany for a month. And when I was over there, all these guys started calling me Schmaltzy. And I was like, nah, okay, it's just a play on my
Like
last name.
Smitty.
No big,
Right.
yeah, yeah, no big deal.
Okay.
So I was there for a month of them calling me that. So I didn't think anything of it. And then a year later, my friend from over there came back to stay here in the States and started calling me Schmaltzy again. And I was like, Marcus, what is this? Why are you calling me Schmaltzy? He's like, you didn't know. He's like, when you were over there, you were trying to hit on all the girls and you used the cheesiest, sappiest pickup lines ever. And I'm like, oh, I was like really offended at 18 years old. I was like, fuck off. This is bullshit.
I had game. What are you talking about? I had
Right. And so he explained to me that in German, in German, the word schmaltzy means like you're super cheesy, super sappy, like a joke is cheesy.
Right.
So again, I held on to that grudge for a couple of years. And then years later, when I got into coaching, I looked for a way to separate myself from everybody else and had a dream about that moment one night, woke up and went, that's it. I'm Schmaltzy. Own it.
Being schmaltzy on purpose, I think, can be fun.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because you're doing, as long as it's thick with irony, then that's how you have to do it.
Dripping
with irony. Yes.
Yes.
It has to be thick with irony. But
Yes.
more iron than cheese.
Right.
Okay. It's a great story. So that's awesome. Okay. So after high school and after your Germany visit, hey, Germany's great. I went to Germany a couple times.
Nice.
Yeah. I did, what was this? Got some schnitzel. Oh my God. The food. Oh, no, the food is so good.
Yes, it is.
Didn't even know what the hell schnitzel was. Right. So for folks that don't know, get some fucking schnitzel.
Right.
What's the kind that has all the cream in it? And it's got like a mushroomy sauce.
Yeah, I'm not. I know
we'll think of it.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
Yeah. It's like pounded thin pork cutlet that's like lightly breaded and fried, and then doused in gravy. Right? Did I nail the description?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
It's a good thing I just ate lunch. Otherwise, I'd be hungry again.
It's delicious. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not probably good for your carb-free diet, but it's really good.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So, what happens after high school for you? Did you go to college? Did you?
I did not. So while I was my junior and senior year, the summers between after my junior and senior year, I worked at my older brother worked at a steel foundry in Seattle, Washington. And so I went to work there in the summers. And then after my senior year, I went to work there full time. I didn't go to college, even though I had the grades for it. Right. There's a story behind that. In high school, I blew out my knee. Thinking I was going to go to college on a baseball scholarship, I blew out my knee and all those scholarships went poof. Instead, I went straight to work and I worked at a steel foundry for a couple of years.
But that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Oh, big deal.
That is a kick in the proverbial nuts.
Ooh, and I hung on to it for a long time. And there was nowadays, nobody cares because you've got sports medicine that's so advanced today. They're like, it's a blown knee. We'll fix it up. You'll be fine. Back then, that was a career-ending injury. You're done. See you later, son.
Can't have you anymore.
Right.
Wow.
So almost immediately after turning 18, I got my own place. got my own apartment. I was working full time. Friend of mine from high school, we moved in together and became probably two of the biggest potheads you had seen in a long time.
Nice.
I
I
mean,
love it. That's
our
awesome.
our coat closet was storing bongs and pipes and all kinds of stuff.
So that's great. And this is back when weed was weak, right?
Right. Right. Back in late 1990s, early 2000s.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that kind of that party, that kind of atmosphere went on for till I was about 24 ish. And I said, oh, and Steel Foundry was 2 years. And then I went to be work at a plating shop. And there I stayed there for 15 years. But
What's a plating shot? Steel foundry, I can kind of imagine what you make.
So plating
like
shop,
big,
like chrome plating, like you see wheels that are chrome plated,
gotcha.
Plating.
Yeah.
So
Now I get
did
it.
that for I was there for 15 years, but in the process, so I was still in this party stage, and then
Smoking a
I
lot
met
of weed.
my
Right. Okay.
then I met my wife. Well, I was still 24, just before turning 25.
Okay.
My now wife. That was on a blind date. Got set up on a blind date by somebody I worked with, and my wife is Cambodian, Asian. And at the time, because I was so busy partying, I knew we had one of the biggest malls, and one of the biggest malls the biggest mall in Washington was just down the road from us.
Okay.
But I never went there. I didn't care about shopping. I was too busy drinking and smoking weed.
Right.
So this person at work gives us each other's numbers. We talk, and she's like, "Okay, I'll see you at the food court at the Westfield Mall. I'll be the little Asian girl." I'm like, "Okay," not knowing any better. I walk into the food court and there's nothing but little Asian girls. I'm like, son of a bitch.
Is this like pre-cell phone era? I mean,
no, it was flip phone, very early,
Gotcha.
very early flip phones. They just gotten rid of the blocks. It was barely early flip phones, but and I had one, she had one, but so I wandered around and I approached probably 5 or 6 different Asian girls that all made eye contact. Whoever made eye contact, I'm like, "Hey, are you Anika? Are you Anika?" I'm like, I walked up, they're like, no. Then she came walking up with her sister. She didn't want to show up alone. And I'm looking at her, she's looking at me, and she picks up her phone and I answer, and we're like, cool, there we go.
Okay. Wow. Good story.
First date was an absolute nightmare, but for some reason she liked me, I liked her, and we went on date number 2, and the rest is history.
Yeah. It worked out.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And you're still at the plating factory at this point?
No, not at all. So that was all in Washington State. We live in Florida now.
Oh, okay.
So we that's the story that really pushed me into the coaching realm was we moved to Florida in 2018 from I'd been at the plating shop for 15 years, and I went on to a machine shop, and from there I took a job in Panama City, Florida, and we moved there 2 months before Hurricane Michael, the Category 5 hurricane.
Right into the main gate of Tyndall.
Right, exactly. just outside of Tyndall. Exactly, just outside of Tyndall.
Yeah.
We rode out a Category 5 hurricane, and all the destruction that happened and everything, and it was like never seen anything like that before.
Did you lose everything? Did everything get destroyed, or?
We were very fortunate because we hadn't bought a house yet. We were still in temporary living.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
And we had a friend. There was a friend that we knew down there that we were able to stay with for a while.
Okay.
So that was very fortunate.
Yeah.
What was interesting about it is the company I went to work for down there turned out was the worst company I've ever worked for in my entire life.
Wow.
And yeah. And so following the first couple months, just getting to know the place, didn't realize this. Then a hurricane happens, and I've got, 6 months of recovery, 6 or 8 months of recovery. So I'm still not realizing this. As soon as we were close to recovery stage, I was like, holy shit, what did I get myself into?
Wow.
Forget about the hurricane. I wasn't even worried about that anymore. I was like, what did I get myself into career-wise?
Yeah.
And that's when I ended up hiring my first personal coach. And I was like, because I was miserable. I'd always been schmaltzy. I'd always been fun and happy-go-lucky leader. And my wife's like, "You're miserable. Something has to give here. Something has to change." She's like, "I've never seen you like this before."
Wow.
And we've been together for, at that point, 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. So off of a friend's recommendation, I hired this coach. And after a few months of working with him, I was like, I love this. I got to do this.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. So did you have to quit that job then? Was that part of the, well, I know it, like quitting a job is like easier said than done. I get that. So, you know, you need to eat, you need money.
Right.
You got
So,
kids. Yeah.
and then we lean into the rest of the story.
Right.
So I started coaching on the side for the first year and a half, 2 years, about 2 years. And then out of the blue, this company decides they don't need me anymore and they lay me off.
That's probably a blessing in disguise.
It turned out to be, yes. It turned out to be.
But
although
not in the moment.
no. And in the moment, it was a shell shock.
Of course.
I literally my entire career never even had a sticky note in my file. Never had any negative. Always been that overperformer, high achiever. And so when they sat me down, I was like looking around like, am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher going to come out of here?
Right,
I mean, what's going on here?
Sure. Had nothing to do with you. It was just like a money decision or something.
Probably. Yeah. I've never gotten that confirmed, but I'm sure that's what it was.
Right.
So the first person I called was my wife, who was actually not very upset about it, not worried about it like I was. And then second person I called was my coach. Told him the story. Here's that they told me. I'm walking out with my stuff to the car, past everyone at the smoking area, going,
I've done a similar walk, and as an adult, well, I was barely an adult, but one of the few times as an adult I cried, like literal. Thank God there was nobody around.
Yeah. That's
just
that's
like, you got that box, you know, and you're walking out. And everybody knows. It's like,
that's the literal walk of shame. I mean, I know people talk about it in different senses, but that's the literal walk of shame.
One of them anyway.
Yeah. But back to what you said about being a blessing. So I called my coach, I told him a story, and he paused for a moment and he said, "Congratulations."
Right.
And I said, "What?" And he said, "You hated it there. You worked yourself there. And you've been telling me for 2 years that if you could coach full time, you could make it happen. Here's your chance."
Right.
And I'm like,
mind blown.
I sat there in my truck for probably what seemed like forever, but was probably only like 10 minutes.
Sure.
And I was like, God dang it, he's right.
Yeah. So,
and I made it happen.
Yeah. In a weird way, right? You get lucky because it's really hard to quit, especially when you've got wife and family, you know, and you were taking care of like other kids too. I mean, I know you had your own kids and then you were taking care of like some older niece and nephew kind of situation. So that's a lot of mouths that are counting on that paycheck.
Yes.
And our natural inclination as dudes is to say, well, you know, I got to feed these people.
Well, and it's not even just feed, it's house too. So when after the hurricane had settled down and everything, we bought a really nice big house that, you know, it was in budget for what I was making, but it was like probably close to the maximum that we should have had for a budget there. And so I'm thinking not only the putting food on the table, I'm thinking, how the hell do I keep us in this house?
Right.
You know?
Totally. Right. Yeah. Well, as it turns out, I was stationed at Tyndall.
I wondered how you knew about Tyndall. That's so funny. That's so funny.
So let's see if there's any touch points of my memories of Tyndall, because Tyndall is kind of like not really Panama City. It's kind of but the outskirts of Panama City.
Yeah, you're a few miles outside of town and a few miles outside of the beach.
Yeah. I mean, the beach is a long drive. Right.
Yes.
So
it's about 25, 30 minutes from Tyndall.
Yeah. Most of the things that I remember about Tyndall, you're not going to be familiar with about Panama City. There was Panama City had like a downtown. Mm-hmm. Did you ever go to downtown Panama City?
It's still there.
There was like this really good, I want to say it might have been a German restaurant with amazing sandwiches. But it's so long ago. I remember
there's some original restaurants still there.
Yeah. And that's that. And then there was this place like right outside. Well, there was like 3 places I remember right outside the gate. You know, that bridge that goes to Tyndall on Highway 98.
Yep.
There's a bunch of like little mom and pops. There was one called Wingo's, and that was the first time I ever had a buffalo wing in my life. So it is like the exemplar example in my brain of what a wing ought to be. Every other wing is compared to Wingo's. I miss Wingo's. They were first time I ever had actual Southern barbecue
Oh,
was over by that Arizona chemical plant.
yep.
It was
Yep.
called Glenn's Barbecue. Shout out to Glenn's. And it was the first time I've ever had properly smoked meat. It is the exemplar example of Florida barbecue. I don't know where that guy's from, but it's so good. Yeah. And then
yeah.
I could keep going.
No, you're
Lots
right.
of food memories of Panama City. It's a great
Well,
place.
and not only the food memories are amazing. I loved every bit of food that we tried there. So we live further south now. We live closer to Tampa now.
Right.
But no, almost every restaurant you went to, as long as you didn't go to a chain, you went to an actual restaurant.
Right.
And then also the hospitality. Southern hospitality is a real thing.
Yes,
it is a real thing.
it's true.
I was like, we came from Seattle where everyone hates each other. And so, I mean, you try to wave at somebody driving down the road and they scowl at you.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa.
It's strange because like I grew up in the Midwest, and there's a lot of things that you can equate to like Oregon, Washington State to the Midwest. Very sort of similar, but then again, not really.
Right. Well, and again, I grew up in a farm town. Farm town was more like Southern living. Everyone knows each other. Everyone's happy with, friendly with each other. And so when we moved to Panama City, we got back to that. Holy crap, everyone's nice to each other.
Yeah. It's a very small town, farmy kind of feel. Sure.
Yeah.
Like you go to Shopko and they say, "Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Shopko." Sorry, that's the Wisconsin version.
That is the Wisconsin accent for sure.
Okay, so that's when you decide. That's when you make the big leap to become a coach. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So how long did you stress out about that, and when did you make money and start?
So it didn't take me long. It didn't take me long because I'd already had some momentum. Even though I was doing it on the side, I didn't have the full-time income yet.
And thank God you had a coach.
I had a coach.
Now he becomes your coaching mentor, basically.
And I had already paid for him, so I was good for a few months.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, dude, I got this guy for another 6.5 months, so I better make some shit happen before then.
Right. Wow. Good for you.
And they did give me a severance. It wasn't huge because I hadn't been there very long, but it was enough to give me some time. I didn't have to like immediately jump into something else. And so I was able to create a full-time income, which was actually more than what I was making at the job.
Wow.
And so it worked out.
Yeah.
Then I took on a big risk and stumbled and fell again.
Okay. As one does. So put us. So this was 2018. Is that what you said?
No. So it was 20. So when I first hired my first coach was 2019, about the time we had recovered from the 2018 hurricane. Okay. And then it was 2021 when I went full time, when they laid me off.
Okay. So you're in 2021, you're in the middle of lockdown for still. Oh, geez.
Correct. And so that was the shitty part about it, because prior to the lockdown, prior to the COVID, there was a bunch of us that were legitimate coaches. It was pretty, I can't say easy, but it was easier to find clients back then because during lockdown, everybody's stuck at home.
Right.
During lockdown, everyone's stuck at home and everyone decides I'm going to be a coach. And so now instead of having this many, now you have this many. And now it's like
everybody's coaching from home on Zoom.
Yeah. Everybody's coaching from home and everyone's got some sort of like, I hate to say scam, but really they are pitching something they've never done themselves. Like, hey, make $20,000 a month, even though I don't make that, but hey, I'll help you make that.
Exactly. Yes.
So it became more challenging to find clients. However, I did. And it was it was just more of a grind, whereas I could have probably gotten a client every 20 calls. Now it was a client every 100 calls because it was just having to filter through the crap.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So 2021. So, okay. Yeah. So you say you had you had some initial success and then you stumble and fall. So what's the stumble fall story?
So, it was late 2022, late 2022. I made the decision that I was going to run a large motivational speaker event. I was finding some success in my coaching. I was meeting up with a bunch of colleagues, a bunch of other speakers. We're all becoming friends. I'm like, cool, I'm going to put together an event. We're all going to speak at it. We're all going to make a bunch of money. Everyone goes home happy. Well, long story short, that event never came off. And I literally poured every bit of our savings plus and some into the venues, into the deposits, into everything. And during that time, while I was trying to promote this event and manage this event, I stopped looking for clients. So my client list is going down like this, down to almost nothing. And our debt's going up like this because I'm spending all of our money. And when it didn't come off, we pretty much lost everything and had to start over.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's not good.
No.
But in retrospect, you learned a lot.
I learned a lot, and I will do it again. Except I learned what not to do this time and what to do. I've definitely learned some hard lessons, but there are lessons, and I will definitely learn from them.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. That like you hear like all of the things like the fake it before you make it and all these things, right? But like the lesson you really need to hear is, you have to know there's money to be made before you start spending money, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So like you want to do the cheapest investment you can and see if that makes money.
Yeah.
Right. Who said that? Like Derek Sivers, I think, was a really good.
Oh,
you remember that guy?
I do remember that guy. Yeah.
CD baby guy.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. So like he was just solving his own problem, right? He didn't go out and spend all of his savings.
No.
But I've heard your story so many times. It's worth repeating because I think we all fall into that trap. I did.
Well, I talk to my wife and my brothers about this all the time. I'm like, I crossed the line. I went from confident to arrogant, and that's when I shot myself in the foot.
Yeah.
So
you just sort of like believe your own bullshit to to your own detriment at some point.
I'm like, I can do this. I've never run one before, but I got this. I got this.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my wife and I went on a marketer's cruise in January of 2023. This is like this event is supposed to come off in April of 2023. And so we go on this marketer's cruise, and there's 400 other marketers there. And I meet several people who literally run events for a living. And one of these guys, he said, Tony, I was telling him about what's going on. And I could see him wincing as I'm talking to him about what's going on. I'm like, oh shit, this isn't good. He's like, Tony, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you my checklist that I use for every event. And I want you to go through it and see what you are and are not doing and what you could be doing. Well, he sent me his checklist, which was about 9-10 pages long. Wow. And I had maybe done a page and a half of that. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like 90 days from event time. And I'm looking at some of these other items going, I never even thought about that. I was like, fuck.
Why didn't I talk to you first?
So my agreement with my wife was either I'm going to have X number of ticket sales, this many dollars in ticket sales by this date, or I'm calling it off. Because if we would have gone beyond that, we would have lost even more. So it was like cut our losses or add on to our losses. So we didn't get those sales. So I ended up cutting the losses and going from there.
So let's talk about what you learned. Because I can tell you learned a lot.
Oh, so
like
the biggest thing,
worth.
You're right. So the biggest thing, honestly, the biggest lesson that I learned out of that was ask for freaking help. Ask for,
yes,
I mean,
totally. Ask anybody for anyone for anything. Yes.
I had all these people around me who have experience in each of these, whether it's getting audio set up, production set up, events. I had all these people around me, but I was back to going from confident to arrogant. I'm like, shoot, I got this. I don't need any help, know?
Right. Wow.
But no successful person in the world has ever done it by themselves.
No.
Always had help.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay. Yeah.
Biggest lesson there.
All right. Well, you survived.
Yes, of course. Now we're thriving again.
Wow. And, your wife was right there with you. So, that's good. It's always important to have mama on board, as they say.
She was the saving grace, honestly, because I got low. When that thing crashed. So did I. I bet. And it's funny because my wife, in our relationship, most of the time it's been my wife has been kind of the negative Nelly and I've been the positive one,
Okay.
And
wow.
when I got into coaching, as far as when I got into personal development and coaching, she was doing the personal development with me. Now she wasn't being coached. She's never hired a coach.
Right.
She's overheard some of my sessions, things like that, but she was doing the personal development. So when I crashed, I was expecting a crash from her too. And she was the one staying up here and staying strong and telling us how we got this. We've been through bad times before. I was like, how can I stay crashed when you won't let me crash?
But no, that's amazing. Just having somebody there on your side. It's huge. It's huge.
And we joke about it today, but I mean, 5-10 years earlier, we wouldn't have been together. You know, we would have split up. She would have left or I would have left. And it would just, the fact that it happened then after we had both been through a lot of personal development and personal growth is just, things happen when and how they're supposed to happen.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. You just mentioned it, but we can move into like some of these bullet points.
Sure.
So you just said like ask anyone for anything is sort of like a bullet point coaching concept. Mm-hmm. And it just came out that you learned that from, you know, if you've got resources, you know, I'll relate a story, right?
Yeah.
Like
please.
When you're in the military, people will walk up to you, especially like, so I was kind of cursed being from the Midwest. I'm a weird little combo here. I have zero ambition. I am like the most reluctant achiever on the planet. If you let me, I will eat wings and beer, you know, as a profession. You know, if I could get away with it, I would do that, right?
Right.
But I'm also from the Midwest, right? So this thing called Protestant work ethic was like programmed into my brain, right?
Right.
If it's work time, you fucking work.
Yeah.
You know?
You're right.
You know, and so, you know, I get in the military with this Protestant work ethic and I don't really have an agenda. It turns me into this like little guy that can. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. You know, colonels will see me and go, give me that guy.
Right.
I don't know what the hell he's doing, but he's getting shit done, you know?
Right.
But every time somebody walks up to me and says, hey, we need you to do this, you know, I go, I don't know how to fucking do that. and they don't want to hear it. They go, I know. That ain't my problem. Stop telling me about your problems. Figure it out. Get it done.
Yep. I know the kind real well.
But that's okay. Because that was a really good feet the fire kind of moment, you know, because then I just have to go, okay, buddy, Colonel asked me to do X. What the fuck do I do? Right. And my boss says, find the guy on the base that does X and ask him what to do. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Go sit down with that guy, get those 10 pages, and then go back and look like a genius.
Yes. Exactly. It's so amazing how often that works when you let it.
Yes. Yeah. So talk about how you implement this for your folks.
So first and foremost, for most people to ask for what they want, it means getting out of their comfort zone. Most people are afraid of hearing no. They're afraid of, they get it in their mind how the conversation's going to, they've convinced themselves the other person's going to say no or not give them the answer they want before they even ask. So they don't ask.
Right.
You know, they hold it back. So I have a series of tasks that I give clients throughout our time coaching together, which I have lovingly called Schmaltzy tasks.
I love it.
Yeah. And so these tasks are intentionally designed to get you out of your comfort zone, but not in any way related towards what you're trying to be coached for or business or anything else. And not dangerously so. Like, for example, and this is in the path of getting you to ask people for what you want. And one of them that I regularly use, and it's one of my favorites I still use, is like, if you go to if somebody's going, I'll tell my client, hey, next time you go to the grocery store or next time you go to any retail store or something like that, in the next week before our next session, I want you to walk up to 5 random people, get real close and say, I am Batman.
Just for fun. Okay.
Just for fun. Just for
Okay.
fun. And it's going to scare the shit out of you. And because you're not going to want to do it. You're afraid of what those people are going to think. And who the fuck cares? Do it anyway. And
That's funny.
most people like have told me, I mean, there's some who have they haven't done it the first time. It's taken the next week, but there's some that they said they literally walked around the store like 4 times before they actually approached somebody. And they said, once they did it once,
They couldn't stop.
they couldn't stop. They said, I went right past 5 to 10. He's like, I was having so much fun.
Oh, that's funny.
And to see that light bulb go off, because you know when people actually did it or not. The people who actually did it come to the next session all excited. Oh, wait till I tell you about this. Wait till I tell you about this, you know?
That's
And
funny.
so it's fun. So that I have that one, and then the other one is like take a different drive to work or school or the grocery
Okay.
store.
Okay.
And because
Like
that's
that.
about opening up where everyone's used to going this direction. They think it's the fastest.
Right.
Take the scenic route. Go a different way.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
it. I love
So
it.
just those little things get you out of your comfort zone.
I get it.
And then we move into the okay, now you're ready type of thing.
Yeah.
Now you're ready to ask. What is it you want to ask for? Let's work on that now.
I have a negative example I want to share as a public service announcement for
Please.
you and anyone listening. Okay. So one of the banes of existence now is canceling cable.
Mm-hmm.
And cable is a stand-in for everything that you might be paying for. But we'll use cable. Because everybody should cancel cable. It's stupid.
I agree. Haven't had it in 6 years.
I'm longer, but that's okay. We digress. But what's coming is, hi, I'd like to cancel, after you've spent an hour trying to figure out the number and the series of events that you need to get to talk to a person to be able to say the words, I'd like to cancel. The question is coming. And the question is, can you give me a reason why you want to cancel? And the answer is no.
Oh,
That is the only acceptable answer. No.
Wow.
Because you don't
Wow.
need a reason.
nope. You don't need a reason. That's great. I love that.
But so then the follow-up question will be, I'm required to ask for a reason why you want to cancel. And your follow-up answer to that is, I understand, and then stop talking.
I acknowledge that you are required to ask. However, I'm not required to answer.
I understand. Stop talking.
And then you get the awkward silence before they say, would you take a 50% discount for the next?
No. It's so shocking that then they just roll right into, okay, I think I've met my requirements for the recording. Usually, right. So you've bypassed all of their script.
Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. I never even thought about saying the no. I've always given a reason, but I've never gone on. I've always continued with the cancel. That's awesome.
I used to say, I no longer wish to pay for this service.
Yeah. Something like that. Yes.
Right. But no works better.
It works way better. And it's a completely acceptable answer. And right. It's a complete sentence.
Correct. No.
Yeah.
May I ask the reason why you're canceling? No.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on from next thing on this list that we made up before we started the show: personal responsibility and choice, which some of my favorite stuff to talk about. Like I could tell like endless stories, but I think it was like a personal development book.
Yeah.
Kept telling me that I am like soup to nuts, 100% responsible for all of my human experience.
Yes.
Into and including before I was born and after I die. That's kind of woo woo.
Yeah.
But that really helped me.
Okay.
Because I was I was depressed and suicidal for a long time. And part of the whining in my head was, I never asked to be born. Aha, yes, you did.
Yeah.
Aha, yes, you did. I was like, motherfucker, I can't whine anymore.
Well, and personal responsibility. Most people, I can't say most people. Yeah, most people play the victim card.
Right.
And I mean, in my
Me
most recent
included.
book,
Yes, me
yeah,
included.
my most recent book, I actually have a chapter that says throw the victim card out the window. You know, I literally talked the whole time about that.
Right.
Things, and people don't understand until you help show them and guide them on the fact that you are correct. You are responsible for where you are today. Every choice you made throughout your life, every instance you had has led you to where you are today and why you are responsible for everything that's happened to you or with you in the past.
Right.
I like to use this example, which is funny because I first heard this example from Jim Rohn, motivational speaker Jim Rohn, and then actually had it happen in real life for me. So this is awesome. So a friend of mine came to me, and again, this is the real one that happened from a friend of mine now. A friend of mine comes to me and tells me a story, coincidentally at a bar, like we were talking about. He tells me this story. He's like, hey, I got rear-ended today, but it's okay. The cop said it's not my fault. It's going to be taken care of. And I looked at him and I said, no, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Totally.
And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you chose to leave your house at that time. You chose to go that particular direction to work. You chose to stop at that stoplight, and various other decisions you made from the time you left your house before you left your house.
Yes.
You put yourself there.
Yeah.
So no, it may not be your fault as far as the accident is concerned, but it is your responsibility for being there at that time to get hit.
Yes.
And he's like,
mind blown.
I'm like, yeah.
You have to be careful doing that whole thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking to law enforcement or lawyers. You're not liable, but you are responsible for your peace. So don't talk about any of that crap in front of law enforcement.
No. Law enforcement. Yeah, don't volunteer any information.
Not my fault.
Those guys.
Totally not responsible. Spiritually coachy, yes.
Right. And then choice. The one I love to use for choice, and I literally just had this happen to me this morning. So it's a fun example to use. Is how many times have you heard somebody say, I'm having a bad day, or I woke up on the wrong side of the bed?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Well, guess what? We're human beings. We're going to have bad dreams. We're going to wake up in bad moods. It happens. Welcome to planet Earth.
Usually it has something to do with alcohol content and
possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
For me anyway.
But what I explain to people is it's okay to wake up on the wrong side of the bed, but it's your choice to stay there.
Right.
There are things you can choose to do first thing in the morning to change your mindset, to change your mood so that you don't have that rough day.
Right.
So frustration is a choice. You know, you're choosing to either be frustrated or not.
Right. Well, and also you may have done something, the day before and the night before, i.e., overeating, over drinking, staying up, not sleeping.
Right.
Waking up happy is a choice, right?
Yes,
but it starts the day before.
Usually it does.
Or maybe a week before.
Depending on where you're at, what you got going on, that's for sure.
Yeah. Like, 4th of July week.
Right.
Way too much drinking for me.
Likewise. Very much so.
That's one of those long hangovers. That's what I call those.
Yeah, it was. And I'm in a situation where my wife doesn't drink at all. So I've always got a designated driver.
Oh, dangerous.
Oh,
dangerous
and so we got
combo.
And we got invited to a get together literally every day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Every day we got to get together.
Right.
And every one of these get togethers is at a house of drinkers. And so I'm like, and I told my wife, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to drink. So she said, no, they'll be offended. Just make sure you have. And I'm like, 2 turns into 8 turns into whatever,
non-drinkers don't get it. They don't get it. Yeah. You're like, wow, oof, I'm already feeling it from yesterday. I might have a hair of the dog, but I don't want to go again. Right.
Then, so this week has been nada yet.
Good for you. You. So, okay. So this is where my free coaching can come into play. I admit I am a people pleaser. So how do I stop doing that?
Well, start by asking yourself, are you really serving yourself or serving the other person with the response you're giving? So if you're being a yes person, is that really, stop and ask yourself before you answer yes or before you give into a question, are you really serving yourself or the other person? Or do you just think, most cases it's no.
Right.
And it's also the understanding, like we talked about earlier, understanding that no is a completely acceptable answer and it is a complete sentence.
I love that. No,
And-
period. Space,
and if-
space.
Correct. And so those are the two biggest things. Now, I mean, there's a whole litany of things we can go through about people pleasing, but I mean, so many times do we find ourselves like going to somebody's family get together that we really didn't want to go to because we didn't want to disappoint them. And
Right.
what we don't stop to think about is the difference between somebody's obligation and invitation. And so if somebody's
Right.
truly inviting you and you say no, they're like, okay, cool, maybe next time.
Right.
But if somebody's expecting you to be there, like obligation, and you say no, they're like, oh, come on, why can't you make it? You know, you usually make these things. That's the difference between invitation and obligation.
Right.
And so when you first take that step, make that choice out of being a people pleaser and start to say, even if it's just one time saying no, start to find out that there's way more people that are putting you in obligation, not an invitation.
Ah, right. Yeah. I
And
get
then-
that. Yeah.
And then when you see that reaction, you're like, wow, yeah, I don't want to get together with you anymore. And then not
Maybe
that it's
not.
that extreme, but I mean, you
Right.
start to,
Do you want me or do you want my homemade salsa? Right.
right. Right.
Can I just drop it off and leave? Yeah.
But you start to see when you become aware to that difference,
Right.
it becomes easier and easier not to be that people pleaser because you understand now that, okay, that person really cares about me. I'm probably going to say yes to that person to help them out. That person,
Right.
like you said, just wants my homemade salsa. They don't give a rat's ass if I'm there or not.
Totally. I think my people pleaser kind of came out of like the worky kind of obligation that you get in the Air Force. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, the colonel says, I want this, right? And the book says he can't have that. So at some point in my career, I decided, you know what? The book doesn't actually sign my evaluation.
Right.
So I kind of want the boss to be happy and like me.
Yep.
This nebulous book thing, you know, as long as I don't get busted
Right. Right.
and the colonel's got my back, you know, I think I've got some wiggle room here to see what I can do anyway, you know.
But you make a good point, though. That's how it starts. It starts with the programming.
Right.
That programming starts even before. You talked about your Protestant child work ethic.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
it's like
yes.
we get this stuff programmed into us as at a young age from our parents. You gotta go to school, get good grades, work hard, get a good job, work till you're whatever,
Till
and
you die. Yes.
40 years and whatever. And
Right.
so this is where that people pleasing starts, because now we've been trained that these are people of authority. We must listen to, we must
Right.
do what they say.
You can't
And
not do that. Right.
instead of spending time thinking for ourselves or figuring out when we should and should not say yes or no.
Right. Wow. See, I it would be worth paying you just to get more of that.
Yeah.
So-
a lot of people go there. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. We've got about 7 minutes left. So self-motivation, positive habits, time management. Where do you want to go? Let's do the finding true success and happiness.
Ooh.
Because
So-
that sounds pretty meaty, but it's 7 minutes. So
It's pretty meaty. It can be pretty meaty.
Yeah.
So lots of people have different definitions of what success means to them.
right.
And when I'm working with clients, I try to help them come up with their own definition, even though I offer mine as a volunteer, and I'm going to say it here. My definition of success is happiness in the areas of life that are important to me.
Right.
And so it doesn't mean anything. So if I don't care, some people don't care about money. Cool. Well, then you're happy with what you have. Cool. Other people want more money, so they're not necessarily happy.
Right.
You know, some people want to be in beach body shape, and so that's important. Physical is important to them. You know, others, they don't care. Like me, beer drinker, hanging out. You know, it's
You want to be healthy enough to keep drinking.
right. I take my vitamins. I'm fine. Fine.
Yeah.
But that's how I define it with the clients, is like, it's happiness in the areas of life that are important to you. And then we get into, cool, what if you had to choose like 2 or 3 areas? Let's not do the whole gamut yet.
Right.
You had to choose 2 or 3 areas. What are 2 or 3 areas that are really important to you that you would like to be happy in, if not already? And so that's where we really get in. I use a tool that I actually originally got from Tom Ziglar, who's son of motivational speaker Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
Uh,
Amazing.
Oh, he's a great friend of mine. He's an amazing guy. He was one of the few that actually stayed close after that event didn't happen. So
Oh,
that's
nice.
been,
Wow.
yeah, that's been awesome. But he uses this technique in his book Choose to Win. It's called the Wheel of Life. And
Wow.
it's literally a wheel like this with spokes on it. And each spoke represents some different aspect of your life. There's personal, there's mindset, there's financial, there's career/business, there's physical, there's emotional, and there's educational. And
Okay.
what you do is you go through here and you rate you come up with a rating of 0 to 10.
Okay.
And based on the line, you put it out on the spoke, 10 being out towards the outside, 0 towards the middle. And at the end of that, you can typically find a flat tire, like one side that is you've got a couple areas that you're kicking your own ass on. And so it's like,
Yeah.
cool, let's focus on those. Let's put together a plan to get those back out before we go back around to the rest of the circle. And when people can even make just a few steps towards whether it is the physical, whether it is the mental, make a few steps to where they can actually put that from a 5 to an 8.
Totally.
The rest becomes easier, and that they understand the success that they're seeing.
It's a really good image too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we've all tried to ride a bike with a flat tire. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I'm not going to lie. That's usually after some too much drinking again, but that's, I can make it. I can make it.
So I will briefly share this story just because I teased it. So that was great. Thanks for sharing. And I agree. I think we've all got like some numbers that are less than 9 or 10. So we've all got work. So, but let's go back to this personal development for drunk people. So I'm on my way back from Cincinnati to Vegas because I live in Vegas. And as I'm going, I'm going to the airport early because I have to check out of the hotel. And I have a time limit to return my rental car without an overcharge.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be at the airport way too long already, right? I know that before I leave the hotel, right? The original leave time was late and I had to get there early, right? So I'm already kind of like, hey, my wife's not around. I don't have to drive at all until like next week if I want, you know? So it's like, I think it's Friday, right? No, it was Friday. So anyway, not only was the flight like leaving originally late, it gets delayed all the way to like 4 hours later. So yeah. So, and I started drinking like when I got there. I'm like, hey, give me some wings, give me some beer, you know? And that just turns into this, like, you know, everybody on the same flight to Vegas just starts saying, hey, there's this comedian from Vegas. He's drinking over there. He's awesome. And I'm like, I'm not a comedian. I live in Vegas, you know? Anyway, so it's this whole thing. I'm way too drunk. I'm talking to everybody. I'm like the life of the party guy, right? It's kind of like telling jokes, kind of like coaching. It's personal development for drunk people. It's awesome. It's like what I was put on the planet to do, I think. And like right at the end, right? They're like, yay, we can get on the plane, right? I get on the plane. It's still party mode. I'm still too drunk. And then I realize, oh shit, I left my bag at the bar. So instead of doing the undrunk thing, I just bounce out of my chair and run out of the plane. And then everybody's just like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck? Stop him, stop him, stop him. And I hear all of this behind me. And I have like that moment of clarity to go, oh, I better stop. So right at the threshold of, you know, that little where they sign you in, the security thingy. I just stop and I turn around and I say to the people, I said, I left my bag at the bar. Real quiet and nice like and mousy. And they go, okay. We'll go get it for you. Is it green? Yes. Okay. But then they assigned me a dude flight attendant sits right next to me for like the whole flight.
Oh, are we sure it wasn't a marshal disguised as a flight attendant?
Yeah, I don't know. I was drunk. So thankfully, there was this woman I don't even know if I talked to her, but she was way drunker than me. She ended up puking on the plane in a bag, thank God. And then she passed out on my shoulder, and everybody thought she was with me. I don't even know her name. But at some point, I noticed this guy, I like turn around and he says, "You just need to be quiet." And I'm like, "Got it. I think I'm going to pass out anyway." And I did. So anyway, there you go. There's my personal development for don't do any of that. Don't do any of that.
Oh God, if I didn't have a similar story.
You do?
Okay. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was at a workshop in Pittsburgh back when I was working at the plating shop, and I was there with like a bunch of folks from like Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed, all the major aerospace companies.
Oh yeah. I know those guys.
Oh yeah. And Friday was the workshop was Monday through Thursday. We were all leaving Friday. Well, Friday was my actual birthday. So Thursday afternoon, we're sitting here hanging out and having some drinks. And they're like, "Oh, first we went out to dinner and they're like, "Oh, we got to stay up till midnight so we can buy you a birthday drink."
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we stay up.
Drinkers. Yes.
And we kept drinking all the way till midnight. And at midnight, we're all like already ready to go. We're like, "We got to make it till midnight." And then midnight comes around. They buy me a shot. We all have a shot, and we all go to bed like right away, like 12:02. We go to bed.
Good idea. Yeah.
The next morning, my flight out of Pittsburgh is 10ish. Not terribly early, not terribly late. I've got a layover in Dallas on the way to Seattle. Well, so I get there, and terminal's pretty empty. I get there, I stop at a little restaurant, and I'm ordering breakfast. I'm like, I need to get some food in my stomach. Right. There's so much alcohol in there. And then I ask,
eggs.
And I ask, I'm doing the hair of the dog. I ask for a Bloody Mary. Nice. And checks my ID. He's like, "Oh, happy birthday." He's like, "This one's on me." I'm like, "Okay." Then he brings me a second one on him. I'm still eating breakfast. Okay. So I have a couple of Bloody Marys, finish breakfast. First flight, not terribly long, 2.5 hours ish, 3 hours maybe. I sleep on that flight. I'm like, okay, I got to get some rest.
Yeah.
Get to Dallas. And I'm like, now I'm hungry again. Lunchtime. I go into TGI Fridays, sit down next to this guy, start bullshitting. He finds out it's my birthday. He's like, "Oh crap." And then we talking again, we find out we're on the same flight. And he's like, "Hey, I'm a double diamond, whatever for this airline. Let's go up to the lounge."
Wow. Free drinks.
So we get, exactly. Not only free drinks, but then everyone else he knows there is all coming and bringing me.
Yeah.
Drink after drink after drink. Let's put it this way.
To your heart's content.
And we lost track of time. They were literally calling our names out over the intercom at the airport, trying to get us to
the lounge. Oh,
and we're like, all of a sudden we're like, "Oh shit, we got to go." As soon as we walk out, we hear them calling our names. We're like, "That's us. Let's go." We're running to the gate, get to the gate. They let us on. And he says to the people at the gate, he's like, "Hey, by the way, it's this guy's birthday." So they give me like 2 drink tickets. Oh, and I'm like, okay. Wow. So I get on.
Exactly what you need, not.
Right. So back to the steward part. So now I get on in my seat. This guy's in first class. I'm in normal, general admission or whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy, steward comes up after we get in the air. Steward comes up and I ask for like a Crown and Coke. And he comes back and I hand him the ticket. He's like, "Oh, what do you get this for?" He's like, "Oh," I'm like, "It's my birthday today." He's like, "Well, happy birthday." And he's clearly gay. And he's like, puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "When you're on me the rest of the night tonight, honey." And I'm like, whew. So he kept bringing me drink after drink after drink after drink. Every time he'd see an empty drink, he'd bring me a new one.
Oh my God.
So I started at say 8:30, 9 a.m. East Coast time. And then I landed in Seattle at 8:30, 9 p.m.
Wow.
Pacific time. Yeah. I've been drinking the whole time in between. Now my wife comes to pick me up at the airport. I'm trying to act sober,
Yeah.
Yes, she's like,
"You reek of Jack."
She's like, she picks me up. I give her a hug, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to drive?" I'm like, "No." And so, because it's my birthday, she proceeds to take us. Her sister's with her, and her sister's boyfriend proceeds to take the 4 of us to a casino where there's a bunch of other people waiting to celebrate my birthday with me. Guess what? For more drinks.
Of course. Wow.
I remember taking 2 shots at that casino and nothing else after.
Wow. Good birthday, though.
No. Obviously, I remember.
So. You remember most of it. The next day probably sucked.
Yeah, apparently I pissed off my wife later that night, and
That happens when you're drunk.
I'm like, if you'd have seen how much I had to drink, you'd understand why.
Okay, so we have had too much fun already. So
Yes.
let's get back to work. Okay, so you are at TonySchmaltz.com.
Yes.
You're very schmaltzy over there. So talk
Yes.
talk about how people can best get in touch with Tony.
So yeah, go to TonySchmaltz.com. There's a contact me section, or book some time with me, or find me on most of the major social platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. I'm probably there.
Okay, awesome. This has been a blast.
Yes, it has.
We
It has.
should get together and try not to drink.
That could be a challenge.
Yeah, no. Let's just pull out the weed and the beer right away and make a plan. Go camping.
Right?
All right, brother. This has been fun.
Yep. Appreciate you. Thank you.
You have a good one.
You too.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.